business ethics module, and I believe that you are going to find it interesting and that you are going to be able to learn something from this particular topic. We begin by the introduction, where we are saying the management of ethics involves a set of behavior that guides individual managers. So when we talk about the management of ethics, we seek as organizations to be able to establish a code of behavior, a way of doing things that is morally right, that we, like we emphasized on the introductory topic, those behaviors, the activities that we intend to do need to be morally right. They need to be those that are going to continue to build the image of the organization, those that are going to continue to ensure that the organization is in the right trajectory. And so by doing it, by ensuring that everything is well managed, so we are going to be looking at a number of ways, or what we call the types of management ethics. We have what we call immoral management, and we are saying this is when managers lack ethical practices. So managers do not have or do not practice ethics. And you are saying, for example, when managers intend to make more profit at the expense of not paying or obeying the taxation laws of payment of taxes. So their key focus would be on the profit aspect, but they want to do unethical practices of not declaring the correct numbers in terms of profits. So that one we call it immoral kind of management. And when it comes to the immoral kind of management, you realize managers are more selfish. Their motives are selfish, and they only care about their gains. So that is not a kind of management ethics that anyone would want to adopt, but you may find it in organizations. And the reason why we are learning these things is that we can avoid whatever that we are going to flag or deem unethical in our discussions. Then we have moral management, where managers plan to make profit while adhering to ethical principles. So ethical principles would be, for example, ensuring prompt payment of employees to keep them motivated. And also another example of moral management is to be able to ensure fair treatment of customers. We have what we call the approaches to management ethics. Number one is a utilitarian approach. And we are saying in this kind of an approach of management ethics, managers make decisions that bring happiness to the staff. And when we use this kind of an approach appropriately, we are able to make the society a better place to be able to live. So the key emphasis when management use this kind of approach is ensuring that their ethical choices are the ones that are going to produce the good to the people in the workplace, to the society, and that the activities or their ethical approaches are going to benefit the greater number of employees within the organization. Of course, when we are utilizing this approach, it may be one of the challenges is that it may be difficult for you to know whether you are able to satisfy everyone, make everybody feel good within the organization. Yeah, so, and you can also be able not to predict whether it can be a good or a bad approach to everybody within the organization. Then we have what we call the moral rights approach. We are saying it emphasizes that best management ethics is that which recognizes employee rights, and therefore any management action must respect these employee rights. So when we use this approach, the moral rights approach, to manage ethics, the key emphasis of the manager when using this approach is to be able to ensure that persons' rights, employees' rights, customers' rights are respected within the organization. We can also call the moral rights approach deontology, and when we call it deontology is still another name, and it means that managers consider rights of human beings, rights to life, rights to safety within the workplace, and also emphasize on a standard of truthfulness within the organization. And finally, another approach to management ethics is the social justice approach, where managers using this approach ensure equity and fairness in all their undertakings with employees. So this kind of approach, management approach to ethics, will ensure that there are social policies that have been developed, social systems, institutions that would be beneficial to all. For example, in a country, we can talk about affordable healthcare. Yeah, so we want to every social being to enjoy healthcare. So at the workplace, we can look at aspects of ensuring equality in terms of payment, equality in terms of distribution of work, and ensuring that everybody within the organization feels that their needs are well taken care of. And also at the country level, when we are using the social justice approach, is when leaders intend to have peace across different countries. Yeah, that's why when even countries, for example, within Africa, are having war infights, the rest of the presidents, where their countries are peaceful, they cannot just keep quiet, because these neighbors would be trading neighbors. There would be people that they have very many bilateral agreement. So they use the approach of the social justice approach to ensure that everybody enjoys peace at whatever part of the world. We have barriers to management ethics. Those things that hinder us from ensuring that ethics is well practiced within an organization. Number one is what we call the chain of command. And we are saying once the employees know the managers are behaving in an ethical manner, they are reluctant to report the matter up the hierarchy. So chain of command is all about a ladder of authority within the organization. So it hinders or it prevents successful management ethics, because employees fear to be victimized, and they fear to be punished for reporting unethical practices by their seniors. So most of them tend to just keep quiet and not report those unethical practices. We have another one is another barrier to management ethics is poor priorities. When policies are not clear, it is difficult to guide employees' behavior in one direction. So for us to be able to succeed and do away with this barrier, definitely we have to develop employee policies. Policies are simply guidelines that are going to assist everybody in the organization to stick to a particular path or direction. And for example, in organizations where there is a practice of discrimination, we can be able to develop policies around avoiding discrimination in the workplace. We can develop policies we call managing diversity policies, going to help organizations respect everybody from any background that they are coming from, and so many other policies, policies on sexual discrimination, policies on remuneration, and so on and so forth. So We fail in management ethics. So because we do not have these priorities, we have not developed policies. Then we look at what we call the principles of ethical decision making. When we want to make decisions, we are guided by certain principles. Number one is the principle of long-term self-interest. And by that we mean that when we are making decisions, then we need not to make those decisions at the expense of our interest or focusing on our personal interest and ignore the organization's interest. The other one is the principle of government requirement. This simply ensures that as a manager, you are able to respect the laws of the land, laws in terms of taxation, laws in terms of health and safety, laws in terms of ensuring that everything that the government is expecting you to do, you are able to do it. And therefore, as you make decisions, you will be well and ethically guided to be able to succeed. And finally is the principle of distributive justice. This principle will simply ensure that we observe fairness, justice within the organization and within the society at large. Now, managers have different roles to play in ensuring that the organization remains ethical, ensuring that everybody in the organization remains ethical. And some of these roles are, number one, that anybody reporting to you has to read and understand the code of ethics. So this should be emphasized even for new employees that are coming into the organization. Ensure that you take them through the code of ethics, the do's and the don'ts within the organization, and these will ensure that they are aware even as they proceed with their activities, even as they proceed with their work. They are aware of the code of ethics and they know the limits of what not to do. So managers will play a critical role in passing this particular communication. Number two, employees' behavior should be monitored with organizational expectations. So monitor employees' behavior. I remember in our discussion, we also emphasized on the need to reward those that are morally doing right or are ethically practicing what is right. So when we monitor behavior, we are able to flag what is not right, we are able to correct, and we are able to guide appropriately our employees towards the overall success of the organization. Number three, any employees who raise issues in good faith need support. This is a major issue because people fear to be victimized. People fear to lose their jobs when they raise issues, that are unethical. But what managers need to do is to provide support and ensure that everybody is protected. Whistleblowers, there are those that are communicate when there is unethical practices. We need to protect them. We need to safeguard them, and so on and so forth. And finally, managers need to anticipate and prevent and also detect compliance risks. So we need to have a form of detection uh, of any unethical practices within the organization, and this will ensure that we flag out uh, any unethical or intended unethical practices on corruption. I see countries have organizations that are in charge of corruption, and one of the ways that they do is they are able to monitor people, corrupt individuals. They are able to monitor their accounts. They are able to monitor the movement of their monies and finances. So at the organizational level, we can be able to put technology, for example, CCTV cameras that are going to assist us to monitor any kind of unethical behavior. For example, theft of company properties, and so on and so forth. We have various guidelines that will help us to ensure effective managerial ethics. Number one is procedural fairness. Any procedures a manager implements must be fair. So this is a point that we have really emphasized since we started the discussion on the need for fairness. The other one is transparent decision making. So as we make decisions, then they need to be as transparent as possible and ensure that everybody feels that the decisions that have been made are fair to them and fair to all the organization members. Now we have guidelines to effective management ethics, a continuation. Number 3, ensure each employee is respected. So that is emphasizing on the need to have respect across board. Number 4, mutual respect. As a manager, ensure each employees treat each other with respect. So this is respect among employees, yeah, and ensure that everybody respects their colleagues. And number 3 is emphasizing on respect between the employees and the management. We have what we call ethical leadership. This is also a very interesting discussion where we say that this is leadership by promoting personal conduct through good interpersonal relations and actions. Ethical leaders aims at being a good example to employees and conducting themselves or yourselves appropriately. So as an ethical leader, the key emphasis is that you need to promote good interpersonal relations within the organization. Across the world, we have individuals that can be regarded as ethical leaders. We have someone like Nelson Mandela, who fought for freedom. We have people like Martin Luther King, who are celebrated civil rights activists. We have somebody like Mahatma Gandhi. He fought for the freedom of the Indian people. So we have practical examples of people that we can call ethical leaders, those that emphasize on the good and of the people, of the society. Now, why is that kind of leadership important? Number one is that it motivates employees. And number 2, that kind of leadership will also ensure collaboration between leaders and employees. And also it helps the organization avoid what we call unethical issues or unethical practices. We have what we can call the characteristics of ethical leaders. What kind of features or what kind of characteristics can we see in leaders and say that they are ethical leaders? Number 1, these kind of people have respect to everyone, and they ensure equality and fairness amongst or within the activities that they are supposed to be carried out, willing to embrace change. So these are leaders that are not rigid in terms of accepting change, embracing things like new technology. We have this kind of leaders also lead by example, and they communicate openly within the organization and across countries. And finally is they ensure fair mediation of issues that arise in the organization. So ethical leaders will not allow any form of conflict. They will ensure that they mediate. They will ensure that they settle things within the organization. I've given an example of what leaders, world leaders are doing across the world. When a country has war, they have to come in and safeguard the lives of the citizens in that particular country. So we can really also define them as ethical leaders because of mediating. Otherwise, countries would just keep quiet and say they are not there in that other country where there is fighting. Yeah, but leaders have always come together to ensure that things settle down within the countries where we have war. We have what we call ethical climates in organizations. And we're saying organizational ethical climate is determined by what employees believe to be right or wrong. And so this climate is important to ensure the success of the organization. And we have indicators of an healthy organizational climate. Number one is integrity. So every organization must practice high levels of integrity. Number two is to ensure zero tolerance to behavior that is destructive. And number three is social responsibility. Social responsibility is simply the aspect of giving back to the community. Remember, no organization can exist as an island. So the society around you need to benefit. And we say they need to benefit because some of those people are your clients, so you can give back to them by ensuring that they have water or providing water projects, educational support to the children in the society. That is very important around social responsibility. And finally is structural reinforcement through which monetary and non-monetary rewards can be given. So support employees within the organization, provide monetary support, non-monetary rewards, for example, praise and recognition, appreciating the work that they are doing is really important towards ensuring a healthy organizational climate. Ensuring ethical improvement and learning, we have a number of things that we can be able to do to ensure that this happens. Number one is a performance gap. Look at where the organization is and where we want to be. Yeah? Number two is ensure a climate of openness and transparency. Number three is ensure continuous organizational learning. So continuous organizational learning simply means as a manager, you ensure that day in, day out, employees are learning something new that can be able to improve their skills. And finally is a system perspective by looking at the organizational bigger picture. So that calls for development of visions that we are going to tell employees, customers on where we intend to be for at a particular duration or after a number of years. So we intend to ensure that we look at the future as managers. Then we look at signs of ethical collapse in organizations. What are some of the things that when we see in organizations, we can be able to say, this organization, in terms of ethics, it has already collapsed. Number one is conflicts, high levels of conflicts within the organizations, high levels of conflicts even at country level, and so on and so forth. Conflicts can be contributed by a number of things. It can be contributed by infighting in terms of resources, especially the financial resources, really bring conflict. At the country level, of course, we are talking about natural resources that are meant to raise finances. Everybody intends to enjoy part of those resources, and then we end up having conflict. The other one is the pressure to maintaining numbers. So people are rushing really hard to make profits without considering how they are doing it. So they end up doing it unethically, fast tracking production, and so on and so forth by using wrong and uncouth ways. The other one is a weak board of management. And finally is the fear of reprisals, fear of being victimized for announcing unethical practices within the organization. Then how do we avoid ethical collapse within the organization? Number one, we need to have a well-defined conflict resolution procedures. Also, we need to avoid external pressures to achieve certain numbers. And I've said those numbers are in terms of profit. We need to move at our own pace. Every organization has its own goals, has its own way of achieving things. So no external pressures should push us to use the uncouth and wrong ways so that we can make profit. Number three, we need to have a very strong board representation. And finally, we need to avoid staff victimization where they raise unethical activities in the organization. So that brings us to the end of that discussion. I invite you to also do research, look at other examples of ethical leaders, understand the ethics rights that we have talked about, the moral rights approach, the social justice approach, the utilitarian approach, and understand also the issue about moral management. You can be able to do more research in that particular discussion to get more insights into the discussion and topic.